everybody. My name is Keely Spring. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California. And today I have with me Olga. Olga and I go way back professionally. We were on the same board together, and I actually took over the president's role from Olga. So we collaborated a lot, got to know each other pretty well. Now we do coffees and those types of things on a more personal level.
Mhm.
But to that end, Olga, I'm wondering if you would mind kind of sharing a little bit about yourself in terms of the populations you work with, the type of work you do, the niches that you're in, and
Yeah,
we'll start there.
great. Well, it's really good to be here with you, Keely. Thank you so much for just ha having this offering for the community and for people out in the world, and also for including me in that. I really appreciate that. And so, hello, everyone. My name is Olga Rocklin. I am a California licensed psychotherapist. I'm based in San Francisco, but my practice is virtual, so I see folks throughout um, California, anybody living here, and I work with people who are 18 and up of all genders. I see a variety of issues in my practice. I'm kind of open to working with folks kind of bringing in or having challenges around a lot of different things in life. Some of my sort of high interests and kind of folks that I see a lot in my practice include young adults, so people kind of between 18 and 30 that are navigating this like kind of wild and uncertain and scary and exciting time of life. And also folks that struggle with substance misuse or abuse, um, people navigating loss and grief. Which is most of us at some point in our lives in different ways, because I really think about like anytime there's a transition, there's a little bit of a sense of loss. I also work with folks who struggle with disordered eating, eating disorders, kind of body image issues, the whole spectrum of that. Um, and I see individual clients. I do not work with couples.
And are you virtual? You mentioned around California, but do you also practice in person or is it virtual?
I appreciate you asking that. For now, I'm virtual only, so it will be a Zoom session or telephone. Some people prefer to talk on the phone, which I'm open to.
That is true. I
Yeah,
feel like telephone doesn't get brought up as much, but I do have people I work with who don't want to do the video and
yeah, and it's like it's kind of an interesting. It's like a different experience, but it feels really fulfilling and meaningful in a different way.
yes, for
Yeah.
sure. For sure. Okay, would you mind sharing with the audience the journey that kind of led you to decide to become a therapist? How did you decide to take this path?
Yeah, I really appreciate this question because I'm sort of like, well, it could go in different directions with this, but what kind of came up to me initially when I was thinking about this is I remembered when I was 12 and in seventh grade, I was asked by some grown-ups I don't know if it was the principal or like the school counselor, I don't remember, to be a peer helper.
Oh,
Yeah, that's how I felt, little 12-year-old me. I was like, this is cool. And so we got like we got t-shirts, which was probably the best part, but but we got trained to really like do like peer counseling in a way, like, and kind of like conflict mediation, that kind of stuff. Again, like middle school age appropriate. And I loved it. I like really, was like so into the experience and like helping friends and not friends. And so I feel like that was sort of my first formal training into the counseling world. Um, and so that was fun to remember. So I appreciate you asking that question. And then I feel like I was just kind of from that point, and maybe even before that, kind of the kid that like wasn't scared of big feelings and wasn't scared of being there for friends that were having a hard time. Um, and so I think I just sort of, whether that's my constitution or I kind of learned it or both, I kind of was this like the friend that was, the counselor for everybody or whatever, right? Um, and then I took some psych classes in high school and I was so interested. It was so interesting to me, the mind and emotions and the brain and neuroscience and all of it. And so I was like, well, I'll study this in college. And then I just stayed interested. And then I did some work after college for about 5 years in the like kind of counseling field, but I wasn't a therapist because I couldn't be. And then I was like, well, I think I want to do this. And so I went to graduate school and did all the stuff. And here I am 11 years later.
Um, quite the journey. I'm
Ah,
always interested, I think there's this theme with therapists sometimes that there's some sort of knowing, maybe not that we're going to go the therapy path, but that we're the go-to people for this
mhm.
kind of emotional
Yeah,
safety for people in our lives, even before we kind of
absolutely. Yeah,
solidify the path.
yeah, yeah.
So what do you like about being a clinician? What's kind of the joys that you find?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I really, really find meaning in people feeling safe with me. Like to your point where you say that that emotional safety, right? That like so many of us move through the world. The world gives us messages like don't talk about how you feel, just put everything down, just keep going, right? Keep going, keep going. And we have this like unique relationship as therapist, client, client, therapist, where we get to kind of drop out of the world and really be like vulnerable with each other. And of course, as a therapist, it's not, it's a little bit different, but I really love that, yeah, that vulnerability, that safety, that trust. I really find a lot of meaning in like seeing people learn to move through their lives in a different way to feel better, for lack of a, different term, but or just have more tolerance for hard stuff, for distress, or have a different relationship with food or substances, or learn to respond to these feelings of grief and loss more skillfully, to be more kind to themselves. Yeah, I love all of these things. It's beautiful. And then I was thinking too, like, I think about this every so often, and like thinking about our conversation today, I was reflecting on like, I don't know what else I would do, like for work. Like I mean, I could probably do a bunch of stuff and I, could get trained and whatever, but like I don't know what else would bring me such meaning.
Mhm.
So I'm really grateful that this is what I get to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said there. I think, yeah, it's like an honor to be able to hold this
Absolutely.
space for people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned a number of different kind of groups of issues, I might say, that you work with. What are some of the modalities that you find you kind of resonate with, use a lot in your practice? I'm assuming there's probably some difference in terms of your eating, working with somebody with an eating disorder versus grief and loss.
Hmm.
Could
Hmm.
you kind of talk us through a little bit of what modalities you pull from?
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate you asking, and like you said, it's so like individualized, right? And what's needed even with the same person is different throughout our time of working together. Um, I think generally, one of the things I think is really important is increasing awareness, like increasing self-awareness. And so a way that I may offer that to clients is using different kind of mindfulness-based practices. So it may look like meditation. It does not have to look like meditation. It's not for everyone, but there's sort of different ways that we can become more self-aware and aware of our patterns and habits or feelings. And then that can kind of open the door to different ways of coping. I also really pull from kind of the like the cognitive therapy world, but I kind of look at it as the loop of, how we think affects how we feel and what we do. Whatever feelings arise affect how we think and what we do. And what we do impacts how we think and feel, right? And so this loop of, I think cognitive and cognitive behavioral therapy can be like the idea of is it's very like structured and kind of forgets that we have feelings. And I think that's a misnomer. And so I really, I think kind of looking at that relationship. So there's, some cognitive therapy. I also really think like coping skills are important for people. And so, maybe like dialectical behavioral therapy has some coping skills that can be useful for people. ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy. And some of this is like do these things mean anything to anybody? I don't know, but I really think of myself as like an integrative therapist, and I think that there's time when like kind of having more structured things to practice outside of session can be really valuable. Um, and then other times having that space to just be fully ourselves for an hour a week is the modality that's the most important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That beautiful piece of just being able to be yourself and kind of navigate whatever is coming up for you.
Yeah.
Um, so you mentioned two things that I don't know have come up too much. One is ACT and one is DBT. Could you just kind of give a like just high level view of what those kind of modalities might entail in
Yeah.
a
ACT, and what was the second one you said?
DBT,
DBT.
dialectical?
Okay, I didn't know if you said CBT or DBT.
Uh,
Yeah, so ACT is an interesting modality because it brings a lot of different things together, but it's really, it's acceptance and commitment therapy. So it's really, um, it's a skill-based thing to help people kind of, rather than maybe spending a lot of time arguing with reality, learning how to find what we value, how do we live more aligned with our values, um, and making really actionable steps towards that.
mhm. Yeah.
And then, am I getting that? Do you have more to
And
say?
yeah, no. I always think of ACT work as like values-based work,
Yeah,
like really kind of
yeah,
aligning with values, which I think you're
yeah,
speaking well to.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's, of course, like there's so many elements to that, but this is very high level. So happy to share more at some point. And then DBT was started very specifically for folks who were struggling with pretty serious like self-harm and emotional dysregulation kind of challenges. But the more I learned about it and trained in it, I would love for this, like it's a four-part skills kind of training. I would love for it to be taught in like all of our schools
Mm-hmm.
because there's four components in DBT, and I don't do the full thing with clients in session because there's a whole protocol. But I pull from, so there's emotion regulation, mindfulness, distress tolerance, and interpersonal effectiveness, right? So it's um, emotion regulation is how do we recognize our feelings and learn to kind of not get so caught up in the roller coaster and respond to these emotions skillfully, right? Mindfulness, increase self-awareness. Um, Distress tolerance. Life is hard, shit happens. And how do we learn to tolerate the parts that feel hard and awful and the only thing we want is to feel different? And then interpersonal effectiveness is just learning how to communicate well. And like, who cannot benefit from that?
Yeah.
So I really love that modality too. And like I said, I wish like we all got to learn these things at some point in our lives. So I'm happy to get to offer parts of this to people with whom I work.
Hmm. And I know this is a little off, but off topic kind of, but you were supervising previously.
Uh-huh.
Are you still supervising clinicians that are kind of coming into the field here?
I appreciate you asking that. I am not currently supervising, but what I do offer is I offer clinical consultation to newly licensed therapists, or so that's just like talking about cases with people who are newly licensed or helping people shape or build their practices. And I also supervise new supervisors.
Right. Right.
So
Because you
it's,
hear it's intensive like camped training, like you got
yeah,
the like extra certification
yeah.
kind of piece.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a year-long program for people to go through. So I went through that and then I supervised for a while, pre-licensed folks. I'm not doing that quite right now, but I'm working with folks who are going through that year-long process to become certified supervisors. So I'm a supervisor of supervisors.
Fair.
Yeah. But
Uh,
it's really like it's delightful. I really like that work too.
yeah, it's another component of the therapy
Hmm. Hmm.
that
Yeah.
you get to probably I'm just thinking from the DBT or the ACT lens, right? You get probably a lot of ability to talk with people about these modalities and how they're impacting, kind of the work that other people do as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so a typical session with you, it sounds pretty organic to me from what you're
Mhm.
describing. Is that what you would say is it is, or is it, are you more structured than what
Yeah.
I'm picking up on?
Yeah, as I said a little bit ago, I think it's so client specific and situation specific. Some people respond really well to having sort of like kind of continuity and structure from session to session, or just sort of like a little bit of a agenda, for lack of a better term. And people really like do well in that. Um, but for a lot of folks, it's really meeting them where they are and yeah, just kind of responding to the moment. And I've been pleasantly surprised in the last few years of, doing exclusively Zoom and phone sessions, that that's like possible even in these kind of ways. I thought it would be a lot harder than in person, but it's actually turned out so far to be really I can still feel connected and it feels organic, and there's like kind of there is some energy that's exchanged even across screens.
Mhm. Yeah, it's funny actually. I saw my dentist the other day and he was bringing up, he's like, "Oh, you work virtually. Does that actually work?" And I was like, "Well, because I do have my office. I see people in person and yeah, I don't feel like I do feel like I was pleasantly surprised
Mhm.
how connected and in tune you can feel over virtual."
Yeah, totally. And maybe it depends on the client. Maybe there's some clients where it probably isn't the right fit for them. Um, and at this point, I feel like probably those folks would not seek me out. But I feel like the ones that I work with, and, I have some long-term clients who I knew, before COVID, which is how I ended up, like most of us, on Zoom, um, in person. So that was a more seamless transition. But even newer clients, it's like, yeah, there's this kind of, and it's almost like, weirdly, like there's an intimacy that's even different than in person, because like we're much closer than we would be if we were sitting in each other's offices right now. And so there is this way that you really get to like see somebody's face and like how they're emoting and all of that.
Mhm. Yeah. I also think too, you get a sense of what their space is like when they're
Mhm.
talking about things or kind of there's an intimacy there for sure.
Yeah. And I love seeing people's pets. I've met a lot of pets that I don't think I would have met otherwise. So that's, and like how people interact with, or kids, like it's just been really sweet in that way of, yeah, I get to know and, so often see a spouse walk through, which is, but, but that's, yeah, there's like, I'm in their world, right? And in a client's world. And that's also, yeah, it's really sweet and meaningful in a different way.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, well, is there anything about therapy that surprises you? Still,
Mm,
11 years in.
yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of what we were talking about earlier, of like that honor, that not taking for granted the people's trust in us as clinicians. I think that's still, I don't know if surprise is the right word, but I think it's very, I'm moved by that still, all these years later. And really find a lot of like just appreciation and delight in that. And so I don't know if I call it a surprise, but I think just that continued like, yeah, like there's something I offer that people feel safe with.
Huh?
And that's like really sweet.
Yeah, this willingness to kind of show up,
Yeah.
provide information that can be really challenging at times for people to share, right? But
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
that space that they know they can.
Right. Yeah. And I feel like, I don't know, I imagine you feel similarly, but there are probably people that I've known in therapy as a clinician that like I probably know more about them than anybody else in their lives. And like what an honor that like I have this place in their lives, and like they're really that they feel like they can tell me anything and everything, and somehow I get that sort of, for whatever, however we found each other, right? Like I get that like special place in their heart, and they do in mine too.
For sure. That definitely resonates for me as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, is there anything that you wish people knew or understood about therapy that kind of either comes up professionally or, in personal circles when you're chatting with people and telling them what you do?
Yeah, I think that, well, for clients, I think it's it's worthwhile. And I wish more people like weren't scared of therapy or like had the sort of idea that like something's got to be really wrong with you or you need to be in crisis or like your life should be falling apart or you have a mental illness. And I think the younger generation is a little bit like, you know, more understanding of mental health and support, which is lovely. Maybe also depends on where you are in the country, but generally it seems that way. But I think, yeah, that it's a place of support. And then the other piece is that it doesn't have to be forever.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people think that like once they start therapy, like this is it forever. They got to commit to like some 15-year process. And I just don't think that's the case for people, you know?
Okay.
So, yeah, so I think that, and then the other piece is, we're talking about modalities and different ways of kind of working with people, and I think that has its value. And then I also think that, and there's research that supports this piece of that, like the relationship is the most important thing between a client and therapist, that we're all trained in some similar and different things, but, um, unless a client has really benefited from a specific modality or like somebody has recommended that they do this, or they're dealing with a specific issue where something could be really helpful, that it's really about that connection and that all the other stuff is just sort of, it's useful but it's not the primary thing. Like if somebody comes to me because they want to learn ACT skills, like if they don't feel like they can trust me, it doesn't matter if I'm the best ACT therapist in the world. So, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying there. I always tell people when I'm doing initial consultations that my goal is never to keep people in therapy.
Yeah.
That said, I think everybody has their different journeys, right? I've had people I've worked with for years, and that's just because what it makes clinical appropriate sense, and we kind of titrate that based on what the need is, right? But then there are the people that, yeah, I'm like, okay, yeah, you've got this thing that we want to work on, you need some tools, and yeah, our goal is to get you to a place that you feel good rather than, you know, my goal as a clinician to be like, forever you will be,
Totally. Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think about like, I would love to work myself out of a job.
Yes.
Like if everyone that comes to see me now that I work with, if they all felt like they were ready to move in through the world and they did not need me or need to talk to a therapist, doesn't have to be me, and they were just like, I'm out here, I don't need therapy, like I will find something else to do for my work, you know? So like I'm also not in this like this is a, here, oh, new client, great, they're gonna be here for 30 years, you know. That sounds daunting to me, you know. So, and I'm totally, if any of my clients want to stay for that long,
For
great.
sure. Sure. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I still have people that one person in particular I'm thinking of that I've worked with since I was an intern or associate now, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and but that's the rarity versus the, kind of
Yeah.
more
Yeah, and
shorter.
people's needs are different. I've also had people, they come and they go live their lives and something else happens, they come back. I think that also like I think it's important for people to know that like you don't have to stay in therapy forever. You can come back, you can work with different therapists. Like there's so many options. But yeah, it's different. People have different needs at different time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's part of we were talking a little bit about what the catalyst or the reasoning for these videos are, or what the goal is. And some of this is about therapist fit, kind of what you're speaking to about there's different clinicians. You're to your point, we are all similarly trained, slightly different lens of how we view things or engage with it. But
Mhm.
you know, um, there is this relational piece that people have to kind of connect with the person, and then the therapy kind of just it goes easier
Right.
because you trust the clinician. There's a rapport,
Yeah.
therapeutic alliance.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so final question in this kind of clinical area.
Yeah.
Is there a tool that you could share with the audience that would be kind of accessible to leave them with something they could try?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a very common one that I share with a lot of my clients. Um, and as you're watching this or listening to this, you can even try it out right now. Is just if possible and available, see if you can notice and feel your feet on the ground.
Okay.
I see you're closing your eyes. You don't have to close your eyes. It's not even required.
Wanted to feel my feet.
Yeah, you're welcome to close. So Keely, close your eyes if you're listening. Keely, close your eyes. You're totally welcome to close your eyes. But it's also one of those things that like you can be in a conversation with somebody or listening to somebody, and you can bring your attention to your feet and still be engaged and listening. And it's a way that can just, it's an invitation to help us ground literally, but also like recognize that we are in a body. Now, I will say that if people don't have feet or don't have a foot or don't have, some people don't have body parts or have non organic body parts, then it could be, bringing your attention to your hands and
Yeah.
feeling where your hands are. Or some body part, or feel like your butt sitting on the chair or something, but some body part that feels like it's connected to something, a surface, and there's not a lot of stories around. For lots of us, there's body parts that can bring up a lot of thoughts and feelings. So feet and hands generally for people are kind of neutral areas.
Yeah. All right. I love it. Obviously, I'm like mindfulness, good. Um, okay, so thank you for that. We're
You're
going to move
welcome.
to a little bit more personal questions, which I've kind of developed to get to know clinicians a little bit better and
Sure.
kind of think and feel about certain things. Would you be open to that?
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know. Am I?
I know.
Maybe
Sounds so
TBD.
daunting. I promise it's not. Okay, so what is something that is making you happy right now?
Oh, I am really, so this is May, mid-May, and I am really enjoying all the various flowers that are blooming around the city. Um, I was recently in Golden Gate Park, and there were just like all of these blooms everywhere. So, and just walking by people's like homes and buildings and apartments, just seeing like things blooming, and that is bringing me a lot of joy and delight.
Yeah, I love this time of the year when
Yeah,
all the colors come out. And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay, what is your favorite app? I know you're not a technical
Oh
person.
my gosh, I'm laughing because we were just talking earlier about how I'm like, I don't have any apps and no social media. Oh, my favorite app. Um, Probably I use Brave to like as my search engine. I know a lot of people don't, but it's like it's a privacy secure kind of it blocks a lot of pop-ups, but it's basically like a Safari or a Chrome, but it's called Brave, and it's a search engine because it's my favorite because it allows me to access to the whole internet. So that's probably my favorite app. I don't have a lot of apps. I try not to spend a lot of time on my phone, so um, I know I'm making all these faces because I'm like, wow, that's like a really funny, hard question for me. Of all the things you could have asked, I'm like, oh wow, I'm gonna have to think about that. See if I come up with a different answer.
Well, if you do, you can let me know. We can pop back to it. I actually use DuckDuckGo as
Yep.
a search engine. Similar, it
Yep.
sounds similar to Brave, kind of what you're
Yeah,
talking
so my understanding is Brave was some guy some of the I think they're guys left DuckDuckGo and started Brave. So there's a lot of similarities, but it's like a little bit more secure. And I think they're doing a little more like AI
about.
crypto stuff, but you don't have to use all that. Um, anyway, it also has a lion head as its like mascot, which I think is cute.
Why we choose apps anyways,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, right?
Do they look appealing? Okay, beach or mountains? Hopefully a little easier of a question.
Beach.
Beach. Like California beaches or sunny tropical beach.
I have no preferences for beaches. I love them all. I just really love water and I love being in and on water and around water. And I can have a beanie and a jacket on and be near water and be happy and content. And I can be in a swimsuit or swimming in the ocean and have a lot of joy in that. So, um, I love the ocean.
Yeah. Okay, what is one thing that movies never get right?
Generally, like
Yeah.
all movies.
Well, just yeah, just something you notice about movies that get wrong.
Well, they never get therapists right. I will say that.
Very true.
Therapists, I have yet to see a movie where therapists are portrayed accurately. Um, and the other thing I think, and this may be changing a little bit, but sort of the ease of relationships,
Mm.
like
People
sort
like
of the rom-com kind of, like
that
that's not,
arc of like, oh, the meet cute.
yeah. Yeah. And then of course, generally the movies have been like the guy then finds the girl and then they
Mhm.
happily ever after that it's
Nice little bow.
so yeah.
Yeah. Okay, what's a your best way to relax?
Oh, my best way to relax. I love swimming, so I swim pretty regularly. So I feel a lot of um, relaxation during and after. So that's a way to relax. And then I practice mindfulness meditation, and that is a way I also like to relax. And I also really like to sleep.
Love
So I
that
have three
answer.
best ways. Sorry, I can't give you one.
That's fine. I love each of those for their own individual. Okay, dream trip location. I know you travel a lot. It's one of the things that you and I have always kind of connected on.
Yeah.
Is there somewhere that you're, looking to go or wanting to go?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a hard question. Man, these ones are harder than the other ones. Um, well, what initially came to mind when you asked that was I think it'd be really cool to go to Iceland and see the Northern Lights, but I don't know if I actually want to do that, but I think it would be cool, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. Because I don't know if I want to be cold. That's my only that's my barrier. But I think that, and then I think it would be really interesting to see Antarctica. Also cold, but
Kind of different poles.
yeah, but I think that just, yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, what advice would you give your younger self?
I would tell her that, um, well, but like in what context?
Well, I was thinking more like kind of like middle school, high school age,
Mm.
younger.
Uh, I would tell her it's gonna be okay,
Mm. Hmm.
that everything is gonna be okay,
Hmm.
and that she's lovable.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
that one hit me. That's sweet.
Yeah.
Um, okay, out of the four seasons, which one's your favorite?
Well, we live in San Francisco, so do we have seasons? I would say probably um spring,
Spring. Kind of
like late spring.
the fresh flowers, the all
Yeah.
the things we were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, what would be the worst superhero power to have?
Mind reading.
Yeah, you're not alone. A lot of clinicians have said mine.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Can I ask you what yours would be?
Originally it was mind reading, but some people have brought up other ones, and I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be awful. Like a couple people said the Hulk, like becoming just like a green. What's the point
Yeah.
of that? Another
Yeah.
person said having fire hands, like the hands that like you
Oh, yeah,
can't touch
yeah.
anybody, which
Yeah.
yeah, be really hard. Um,
Interesting.
I think
Yeah.
there's a ton that just could go so poorly,
Mhm.
in different ways. But originally it was also mind reading. I just wouldn't want that feels like too much information and overwhelming. Yeah.
Right. And then like, in the X-Men, they had to put the thing on him so he wouldn't. And then that seems like that's also very limiting.
Okay, what is an animal that resonates for you?
Lion.
Lion.
Yeah.
Is there a reason?
Well, I have the hair of a male lion.
Sure.
So there's that. Well, I think lion, and so that's probably, and I think they're just interesting animals. But I also think lions are interesting because the women do everything in, for the most part, in the lion. It's not a, what are they called?
Pride.
Pride. Thank you. Um, and yeah, so I just think that's kind of, it's, they're like a little bit underrated. Like everyone's always like the male lions, like because they're beautiful and like they hunt sometimes, but the ladies do all the things. So I just think, yeah, I like lions.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that answer. Final question.
Okay.
When you look back at your life, what do you hope that you'll be able to say about it?
That um that I have been of benefit and of service.
Well, thank you, Olga. You are officially seen.
Thank you.
Hope it feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Uh,
This was really sweet.
yeah, yeah. Well, so is there anything before we kind of end here that you want to make sure that we didn't address that you want people to know about or anything like that? I mean, we covered kind of a wide range of things, so but
Yeah, no, I think we covered a lot. I appreciate your thoroughness and your questions yeah, I just want to thank you again for your offering and for doing this for people out in the world and also just it's sweet to connect with you.
for sure, for sure. Thank you so much, Olga. I really appreciate your time, and I'm sure I will see you soon, no matter what.
Yes.
But I will include Olga's information in the notes of all this so people you can reach out. And yeah, thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks, Keely.